all is tipped, and there you are. You're running for your life. You're a shooting star. In all the years, no one knows just how hard you worked, but now it shows. In one shining moment, it's all on the line. In one shining moment, they're frozen in time. But time is short and the road is long. In the blinking of an eye, that moment's gone. And when it's done, win or lose, you always did your best. 'Cause inside you knew that in one shining moment you reached deep inside. One shining moment you knew you were alive. Feel the beat of your heart, feel the wind in your face. It's more than a contest, it's more than a race. And when it's done, win or lose, you always did your best. 'Cause inside you knew, in one shining moment you reached for the sky. In one shining moment you knew, yeah. In one shining moment you're willing to try. In one shining moment you knew. One shining moment.
Just spread it out. Thank you. And then all this has to go away too, okay? Okay. Love you. Oh, better, buddy. There you feel. Feel warm again.
What is up, CSBA? It is National Championship night. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, in this pregame show, we're going to talk a little bit about the team comparisons, how these two teams match up, dive deep into some of the matchups, and just talk a little bit about the path that these two teams have taken to get to the National Championship game. And joining me in the booth is my main man, my compadre. What is up, C-Web? What's going on, buddy?
What's going on? Just excited to start getting into this game. I mean, this is the game of the year, so this should be an exciting night for everybody involved.
You know what? What's interesting too, and just throwing this out there here before we kind of dive deep into some of the comparisons here. We actually have it. I think this could be the very first time, at least that I'm off the top of my head. And if I'm wrong on this, obviously I sound like an idiot. But I think this is the first time we don't have a number one seed in a national championship game.
You might be right about that. I think you're right, but history has proven us wrong time and again, it seems.
I mean, well, I'll say this. I mean, a 4 and a 3 seed. I don't think anything we've ever seen that before. So,
No, a complete lack of a 1 seed. That's rare, and not to even have a 2 seed. I don't think has happened before. So
they always say it's about what you do in the postseason that matters the most. The regular season, while it's great that you could be a conference champion, you could even have a phenomenal record and go undefeated during the regular season. What you do in March Madness obviously matters. That is where records are broken, names are made, legacies are started. So we've always talked about you and you being the upset king. For these two coaches, I think this is obviously a huge for their programs. I know Duke in the past has won a championship, but obviously not under the tutelage of Mitch. but FSU has never been to the promised land. So, this uncharted territories for both these teams. Just really breaking down the path for each of these teams. FSU in the first round takes down Washington 76-68. They move on to the second round, where I'm sorry to say for you, FSU takes down the number 1 seed Gonzaga Bulldogs, and they were the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. From there, an unlikely matchup, but a matchup nonetheless that they were able to win. FSU takes down Kansas 89-75, and then FSU wasn't done with number 1 seeds either here in the Final Four, in the Final Four, as they took down Arkansas 96-88. As we look at Duke on the other side of the coin, they take down Murray State in the first round, kind of a little bit of a laugher game for them. And then again, a game that I thought that a lot of people questioned why Marquette was not a number 1 seed. Duke came in, they won that game by 19, 98-79. From there, then Duke's path got tougher. They had to take on number 1 seed Oregon, barely beating them 93-81. And then probably one of the more exciting Final Four games we've had in a really long time. Duke takes down the other number 1 seed, 84-78, taking down Kentucky in the Final Four. So, both these teams battle tested C-Web, taken down pretty big seeds. They've done, yeoman's work here to get to this Final Four, to this championship game. So they've got to be proud regardless of whatever the outcome is here tonight. But talk to me a little bit about this team comparison and how the numbers break down.
So interesting that we're seeing a three-peat matchup here. Florida State was able to take down Duke in their first 2 meetings in the ACC. Both on last-minute buzzer beater shots, 87-86 in the conference tournament and 83-82 in the regular season. Interesting thing to mention about both of those games, the bench for Florida State outscored the Duke bench in both of those games. And if you look at the box scores, that does come back to haunt Duke in the end, because you look at the balance that Florida State had scoring in those games. Duke had a couple high-scoring individuals. Noah Johnson put up 23 in that conference championship game, but they didn't get the scoring through the lineup like Florida State did. So I think that could be something to watch as things go along tonight.
Yeah, and just praying to the sim gods that we get, something similar to what we've gotten in the first 2 round matchups between these two teams. Anything else on the team comparison numbers before we kind of jump into to the player matchups?
Yeah, so I mean, both of these teams scored just about the exact same number of total points, points for. You can see Duke a little bit better on the defensive end, Florida State with the slight rebounding edge. A lot of this is going to come down to the individual matchups, which we will get into in a minute, but the numbers here are maybe a little bit misleading. I know Duke looks a little bit better on paper here, but do keep in mind that 80% free throw percentage. We have seen that come back to help teams down the stretch in title games.
No, and that's a really good point. And I think if you look at the points scored at each of these games, Duke has just offensively been a juggernaut. 3 of the 4 games putting points into the 90s, only 1 game 84. Why in the postseason? Again, this is discounting the regular season. So if you look at FSU in their run to the national championship game, they had 2 games in the 90s, 1 at 89, so just outside of the 90-point threshold, and then the 1 game 76. So I think that 76-68 first-round matchup against Washington, where they just squeaked by with that 8-point victory, certainly factors into the overall team points per game there. But I think, if you really want to break it down, not too far off between these two teams, like you mentioned.
No, definitely a really close matchup. So we'll take a look at some of the player matchups here. Get an idea of what could be the difference here tonight for each team, though.
Yeah, and as we look up these matchups, guys, just know that these are the starting lineups for the teams. So starting at point guard, Adrian Vasco for Duke, Tier Gunderson for Florida State. Pretty even matchup here from what it looks like. I think Vasco a little bit more of a facilitator with the 5.2 assists per game, but Gunderson, when on, has his moments. C-Web, but what's your take on this matchup?
Yeah, so both teams actually running their big time point guards off the bench tonight. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. Like you said, Vasco a little bit more the facilitator. Gunderson, he's a little bit more of a toolbox player. I think this could come down to a defensive matchup. Gunderson maybe in there for the defense against Vasco.
Yeah, and the one thing about Vasco too that I think that's, he averages maybe a little bit more on the rebounds per game. Not a ton more, obviously. Maybe about a rebound differential between Vasco and Gunderson as far as per game, 2-1. But Vasco does contribute on that aspect of it too. And then just looking at Vasco's shooting percentage, he shoots about 49% from the field, while Gunderson similar numbers, 47%. So these guys should be a pretty even matchup, I feel. Vasco has shown at times, though, can take over games. We have not really seen that from Gunderson. So, for me, edge here goes to Duke.
Yeah, I think the advantage for me goes to Duke here as well. Vasco, a little bit more the seasoned player. Like I said, Gunderson, a little bit more of that role player, but maybe the role that he's playing tonight is for the defensive side of the ball, so we'll see just how this works out.
Yeah, let's jump over to the shooting guards, starting for Duke, Noah Johnson, and starting for Florida State, Stephen Chile. So just looking at this matchup, what's your breakdown of these two?
Well, Noah Johnson's been a rock for Duke all season. He's been one of, if not their leading scorer. I think he's maybe 0.3 behind Gunn right now. But again, one of the two leading scorers on this team. The dangerous thing I see here, though, is the fact that Stephen Chile is a 63% three-point shooter. That's not his field goal percentage, folks. That's his three-point percentage. I know he's only averaging 9.3 per game, but you have to figure a lot of that is coming on 3 points.
Yeah, he's stepped up big at times this season. I've seen him carry the offense at times as well. So certainly a player that Florida State is hoping can have a big game here. Obviously, Noah Johnson has been great all season. You look at these two players. The interesting thing I think where it comes down to. It could be the difference, and you talked about this when we were talking about the team comparison, but you look at the free throw percentage. Like, both these guys, if you look at field goal percentage, 2-point differential between field goal percentage. Johnson averages 61 from the field, 59.8 for Chile, so literally it's actually a 1.2% difference between the two. But the three-pointers, both these guys shoot, a high efficiency from beyond the arc, but when it comes down to the free throw line, there is a huge disparity. Noah Johnson makes his 81%, while Chile only 57%. So, if these guys go to the line or get situation where they got to go shoot from the charity strike, that could be a difference between the two in this matchup. But I like this matchup a lot. I kind of feel like it feels very even. I think the differential for me could be at the free throw line.
Yeah, I saw that looking at the stats pregame, is that the free throw percentage could be the thing that does affect this matchup the most. The good news is both of these guys don't really go to the line all that often, primarily being outside shooters.
Yeah,
but Johnson,
it'll be interesting to see if they're relied on from beyond the arc. I know Noah Johnson is he does have moments where he does, especially in the transition game, does get out and drive to the rim sometimes. So if there was a guy that's going to go to the free throw line, it might be more him than Chile. But yeah, to your point.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Chile not gonna draw a ton of fouls, but if you do put him at the free throw line, that could be where you take advantage of him. Actually,
yeah, for sure. Let's jump over to the small forward matchup: Daniel Rat-a-tat-tat Gunn and Mr. Juju Stovins. To me, like I said, we took the shooting guard. I think was an even matchup, even as far as I felt like an edge wise. This one, I think, definitely feels more of an edge towards Daniel Gunn. But, talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, the edge definitely goes to Gunn. Again, he and Johnson kind of going back and forth for top scorer on the team this year over at Duke. But Stovins, I mean, this is a tough matchup for him. Again, this is going to be about whether or not he's going to be able to contain Gunn on defense. I do like that he's averaging close to 3 assists per game. It means when he does get the ball, if Gunn closes out, he does have the awareness to be able to get rid of it in a pressure situation. But again, you're in a national title game, and pressure situations look a little different. So we'll have to see if he retains that composure throughout the game, or if the matchup is going to be too much for him.
Well, one key factor, even though I said that Gunn is the advantage is to Gunn here, and Gunn averages about 40% from the 3-point range, but if you look at Juju Stovins, he's averaging perfect from the free throw line on the season, 44% from 3. So Florida State has gotten some production from him at the free throw line or beyond the arc. So if they want to win this matchup, Stovins is going to need to do well from beyond the arc. Let's jump ahead to the power forwards. Interesting enough, Takala Wakabi, who's a small forward, playing at the 4 tonight. Obviously to me this matchup is Wakabi takes on Wisla here, Dresscorp Wisla. In my opinion, this edge goes to Florida State substantially. Wakabi hasn't been playing the way we saw early on during the season. I think for me, C-Web, and I'd love to hear your opinion here, but I feel like Wakabi has taken a little bit of a step back role-wise on this team. Obviously big challenge for him tonight to have to take on Dresscorp Wisla, who's been putting up monster numbers the entire postseason. I feel like, I know his average is 16.6, but I think in the last couple of games he's had close to 25, 30 points in each of those games. So, to me, this is a one-sided matchup, but, certainly height-wise, Wakabi 6'10", Wisla 6'10", so from that perspective, these two guys match up size-wise, but I think from a talent perspective, it's got to go to Wisla.
I mean, from a stat perspective, you're absolutely right. This does go to Wisla. I will throw this at you, though. I think this was a tactical move by Mitch to put Wakabi against Wisla. I think he matches up much better with him than any of the other power forward eligible players on the Duke roster. So this is a strong defensive play coming from the other side here by Coach Mitch, because Wisla, like you said, has been on a tear. He's been averaging nearly 20 points a game throughout March Madness. Ignoring that Washington game where they kind of got off to a slow start. But he's been the guy that's led them through most of this tournament. And, if Duke does something tonight to throw a wrench in that, I see what he's trying to do. I do agree with you that the matchup does probably go to Wisla, but this is going to be a big key to the game, because if this matchup if this defensive move does slow down the Florida State offense, it could be trouble for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, this is the key to the game right here. This matchup, obviously, Wakabi has done a good job the last 2 times these two teams have played, but Wisla's playing at another level right now, and I can tell you this: Florida State has been running some different things here in this March Madness tournament that they didn't run when they played Duke the first 2 times. So, from a playbook perspective, I know some of the stuff having put in the game plans earlier today for this matchup, that has really benefited Wisla's play. I'm curious to see how it plays out for sure, because obviously they're not running the same offense that they were running the last 2 times these guys played. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out for sure. Obviously, Wakabi has done a good job though on Wisla during that time. So let's jump over to the center. Wow, 2 big men here. These guys I feel like they've been all or nothing, as Theo Marcos and Ryan Dobbins. They have been all or nothing for their teams this season. I feel like when they're involved offensively, they're killing it. Obviously, they've been consistent on the boards all season long. They've been pretty much, the 2 of them, close to double-double machines for the most part. But there has been some games, C-Web, where one of these guys hasn't played, and that partially just due to the way the offense is run. But I can tell you right now, it should be an interesting battle on the boards between these 2. But what's your take at the center position?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting battle on the boards. Both of these guys averaging over 8 rebounds per game. Pretty close in the scoring department as well. Both of them, Dobbins, yeah, up around 12 per game right now. He has been scoring a little bit more here in this postseason. As you said, Florida State doing some different things later in the season that got him up there. But Marcos also just, I mean, the talent around him is the reason his point total really isn't higher. So that's not something to really look at too much here. I do look at the rebounds though, and the fact that Marcos has been a little bit more dominant on the boards than Dobbins has been, despite the fact that the numbers are so close.
Well, I'll throw this out to you too as well. Theo Marcos' field goal percentage is 72%. So a lot of his rebounds that he's getting are in the paint. They're putbacks, easy buckets. That's the reason why his field goal percentage is so high. So, if Dobbins wants to shut him down, he's going to need to box him out. Obviously, Dobbins still has a very high field goal percentage, 63%, but that's about just a shy under 10% difference between the two players. So, if I'm gonna say that there's something to watch, that is one of the things that you're gonna want to keep an eye on as this game goes on tonight, and see who can rebound the ball, but not only rebound the ball, but who can do it offensively. Because if Marcos is dominating in the boards, we've seen him take over games. So you got to keep an eye on those things.
If he can get into that offensive board dominance that he has, that could definitely spell trouble for Florida State. So.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the sixth man coming off the bench. For Duke, it's Alvin Iverson. For Florida State, it is R.J. Avery. Thoughts on the sixth man here, and then obviously we can talk a little bit about the bench as well, just in general.
Two totally different looks in terms of who's coming off the bench at point guard here. Iverson, pure shooting point guard. We've seen him more than once turn a game around when he was back at Ohio State. Leading scorer on Duke right now, but he's definitely, he's able to move the ball as well. 2.9 assists per game is not bad for who's actually a pure shooting guard. On the other side, though, R.J. Avery, the play here is that he's going to try to facilitate the bench and get it away from Iverson and not let him affect the way that this bench unit plays. Because, again, I think this was what I mentioned in the opening, is that Florida State's bench was what led them to victory the last two times. They had 5-point advantages from the bench unit both times and were able to come away with the 1-point win. So it will be interesting to see what's going to win out. Is it going to be the ball movement offense off the bench, or is it going to be the ball dominant point guard putting up 20-something in 13 minutes?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I know in the last game against Kentucky, I believe, I want to say it was Noah Johnson who got into foul trouble early, picked up 2 fouls in the first minute of the game, and Iverson was injected, and he came in and changed the dynamic of that game. Certainly Kentucky, I think, wasn't obviously planning for that, and the way it kind of went down, and Iverson just kind of lit the lamp every little chance, every time he touched the ball. And I think for Kentucky, it took them some time to get back into the game, and ultimately they ended up losing that game by 6. But I can tell you right now, it changed the complexion of the game. So Iverson has that ability to him, whether it's coming in and helping out, or situations where he is going to be the guy leading the bench. On the other side, as you look at Florida State, for me, obviously you have Ching, who's probably going to be guarding Iverson. That's going to be a tough matchup for him. Obviously, that leans Duke's way, but R.J. Avery, if he can facilitate, we've seen this Florida State bench have their way with teams this season. So, if I had to say, hey, was it one team have a deeper bench over the other, I still feel like Duke has that advantage. A.J. Lussier started to come into his own. A big, strong Blackman who could certainly, surprisingly, he's got a huge, high 3-point percentage on the season. He's got a 67% 3-point shot from a center, so a stretch center. So they're going to want to keep their eyes on that, and certainly Courtney Palmer's going to have his hands full, because that's going to pull him away from the basket. if Blackman is playing more on the outside. So a lot of interesting developments off the bench. Different style teams these two teams have. And again, like you said earlier, these two teams play to a 1-point game. I'm praying the Sim gods are good to us and give us that same type of game because I think it would be a phenomenal national championship game if it kind of played out that way.
Yeah, it would be great if we had another buzzer beater kind of game between these two teams. Maybe if we go to overtime. I'm not even sure if I think we have had a final go to overtime before, but it's always fun when it does.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. We got that game's going to come up in about a half hour from now. Just to everybody that is in the stream, if you haven't seen the league announcements that I made, if you're in viewing the game, if you actually, what I was say, if you post 4 screenshots, 1 from each quarter, in the Natty Screenshots channel, we ask that you post all 4 screenshots of you watching. Obviously, screenshots of during the game. You post those, you're going to get entered to win either a first place prize of $50 in credits, and second place would be $25 in credits just for you to use for next season. So that's great for anybody that's new within the league. Obviously great for any of their existing users who might have the ability to put stuff towards a new player or their existing players for next season. So we'll announce that one. But again, that one goes right up to I'm going to close that channel the second the box score. And once we're done posting the box scores within Discord, so that will give you the entire post game when we go through the numbers, as well as when I post the box score. So probably about 10 to 15 minutes probably since once the game ends. So an opportunity for anybody. I think the VGL is, if you're in the VGL, I think they're also offering something very similar. So cool incentive for you to watch this game. We want to see the league come out and support us. So if your coach is watching the stream, or if your teammates don't know about this, please share that information with your team so that we can get nice numbers here for this national championship. C-Web, any parting words, any thoughts again on this matchup, and do you have a prediction?
I mean, my final thoughts are I think it's going to be a good game. Again, pray to the Sim gods it will be. I hate to pick against my boy Phoenix because he's already beat him twice, but it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in the season, so I think I got to go with Duke. But I'm really, this is like a 51-49 pick.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not even going to pick a team because I really just want to see literally a one-possession sim. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's all that I'm asking for. So anything above and beyond that, I mean, I'll be appreciative of it. Obviously, this has been a fun season, knowing that a lot of teams, only have one winner per season. And I know for a lot of people it's hard to root for teams when you're out. It's hard to want to be involved when you're out. Sometimes people want to quit because they didn't win the championship. But just know a lot goes into this. A little bit of it is good coaching. A little bit of it is having an active team who's in the gym and helping. But at the same time, there's a little bit of luck that goes into this too. So a little bit of everything. So I can understand why people get frustrated. But who's going to cut the nets tonight? I don't know. I just hope it's a good game, and I hope the Sim gods are good to us. Someone's going to get their one shining moment. Just not sure who it's going to be. All right, for C-Web, I'm wired. We'll see you guys in 30 minutes for the national championship game. C-Web going to be on that call with me